Hi, again. Welcome to another episode of These Old Guns. I'm still Rick, and I'm still a gun nut. That being said, not an expert, just an aficionado. I like to talk about the old guns, I like to shoot them, I like to demonstrate how to shoot them, how to load them, and try to tell you as much as I can about the old guns without going off on a tangent of an expert. There are people on YouTube who do that. If you want an expert analysis of this gun, go see Ian of Forgotten Weapons. There's great people. I won't bore you with that. But I will show you some of the old guns I've come across that I find interesting, odd, curious, weird, why bother, but history of where they came from and why they exist. I have today's example of a Snyder-Enfield conversion. Conversion saying this rifle started out life as an 1862 Enfield muzzle-loading musket. That being said, it used a mini ball. Details later. A conical, hollow-based mini ball that was loaded from the muzzle over powder charge and then fired. Sometimes people go crazy. Oh, it's an Enfield, it must be Confederate. No. The Confederacy during the Civil War did import Enfields that got past the blockade. The North also used Enfields. And not all Enfields in this country are Confederate. So if you come across one, be very, very careful and contact an expert, not me, about its provenance, because there are people who actually put the improper markings, especially on Enfields, to boost their value by claiming they are a Confederate firearm. This actually came from Afghanistan, so it's doubtful this was ever used in the Civil War or even made it to the country here until someone I know brought it back from the bazaar in Afghanistan some probably 20-something years ago. But I'll show you details later in the video of the gun where it says it is an 1862 Enfield. It's a Snyder conversion. It is a Mark II, because experts saying, well, it's not just a Snyder, there's all different variants. Okay, this is the Mark II. This was a muzzle loader. It had the Snyder conversion put in it, which was an American invention. The Americans didn't want it, the British took it, because after the Civil War, this being an 1853 model, the British Empire was huge. They got a big army, and it's a big amount of guns. What do you do with them? The entire world is going over to breech-loading firearms. If you can find a version of this in a breech loader that would be a nice stopgap measure, that's what you do. We adopted the Allen conversion for our muskets. The Brits took the Snyder conversion for their muskets and turned it into a breech-loading rifle. This is a 2-band short rifle. There were 3 bands. There were also carbines of this. They chopped off the barrel, mounted a new breech on it, and it became a breech loader. This happens to be marked as a number 2, Model 2 conversion. It's pretty cool. It shoots a 5.77 ball. We'll get to the ammo on this, but to just show you, this is what the gun is. We're going to put it across a chronograph to see what kind of velocity we get out of this as a breech loader. I think I used about 75 grains of 1F powder, slow burning powder, not to push the gun past its limits. We're going to put it across the chronograph and see how fast it throws about a 525 grain mini ball, 520 I think mini ball, across the chronograph. They're a lot of fun to shoot. They're pretty interesting. I have other British weapons that we'll do another video on. We're going to cover the Martini Henrys and the Martini Cadet. And that's kind of what the other side of the Great Salt Pond had for their guns. What we were doing are different. So that being said, I'll stop it here. We'll go into the details of the ammunition, the details of the gun, the markings of the gun, which is interesting because the British guns have so many stampings on them. I think every time a British officer or an inspector walked by a stack of these, they broke out the stamps and started hitting the gun over the place. Because this has more markings on it than a modern Ruger pistol, which has the entire disclaimer of please read instruction manual before using that. These are more numbers, more letters. You can make a career out just trying to understand what all the markings are. And when you get to the British guns that were made in Afghanistan, it's even more interesting. That being said, we'll stop here. We'll do a detailed inspection of all the different components of the gun and the ammunition before we go ahead and shoot it. So stand by, there's more to come. Alright, here we are, scene 2, act 1, or however it goes. We're back. We talk about the ammunition, the components of the ammunition, and the gun itself, and the modification. Let's take a look at the rifle. If you can see, the markings as 1862 Enfield. This is when it was a muzzle loader. Here's the hammer. The conversion was reusing the barrel and putting a new breech block that was a Snyder conversion. Consists of, let me move these out of the way for now. The breech block was a sliding breech block. Here's the firing, which would transfer down, hit the primer on the case. We're not going to put a live round, we'll put a dead round in here. We'll go in there like that. You close the block, will be fired. Withdraw the hammer, roll the block up, pull it back, and dump them out. Now, granted, it wasn't perfect, but it was better than a muzzle loader. It could be fired faster, and could be fired from the prone position, and it had everything that the muzzle loader couldn't do. It even used the same bullet. Now, getting into the ammunition on this, this is a Jameson case. It's 577 Snyder. Difficult to come by. So what can be used instead is 24 gauge brass shotgun shells, which is what this is. And when I made them, they were trimmed to length, put through the sizing die and size into this. This one is a 577 Snyder. All right. And I'm using a Civil War style mini ball or mini ball, conical base. When loaded from the muzzle of the gun, the gas would expand the skirt, engage the rifling, and cause a twist on it. The Snyder used a solid bullet like this. It's a Snyder bullet. Got a small base in it, and rather than expanding, it would expand a little bit or upset, but it would have been paper patched. Have I paper patched bullets? Yes. Is it interesting? Yes. Do I feel like doing it? No. I can't be bothered. I find it much easier to use a mini ball that will just get shoved in the case, loaded over black powder, and come flying out of there, and it works just fine. But a purist, which I am not, would take this bullet and paper patch it and use the Snyder case or the shotgun brass. This is the one we're going to shoot. It's Jameson Snyder brass. It has the Lyman new style mini ball, about a 520 something grain mini ball in there, with about 70 grains of 1F black powder with a card over it. There was a slight taper to the case. Hold the bullet in there. And I found this thing shoots about as well as it did as a musket. So that's the ammo, the details. On the gun itself, the markings. Oh my gosh, there's markings. Every part's got a stamp on it. If you look at the top of the breech block, you've got it say Mark II, and all the different British stamps, proof mark stamps, inspector stamps. And I don't see anything in acrylic because this did come from Afghanistan, but started out as a British firearm, remaining British, and ended up in Afghanistan. And a lot of British guns have come from Afghanistan during that war, including the I have two Martini Cadets, which we'll cover in another video. A Martini Cadet rifle in 577 450, and another carbine which was manufactured in Afghanistan. And everything is in the language, but it is still under British supervision. So we're going to get ready to shoot this thing and see how they shoot. I've got a chronograph set up. I've got a target set up at 25 yards. We're going to shoot this ammunition here, a couple rounds through it out of chronograph using a Civil War style mini ball, about 70 grains of 1F black powder with a card over it, and just put it across the chronograph and see what kind of velocity we get. I'm guessing it'll be a little over 1,000 feet per second, but we're going to put it across the chronograph and find out. So now the fun part. It's hot, we got mosquitoes. The black powder will help get rid of some of the mosquitoes too. Alright, let's shoot this thing. Now, downrange of a chronograph and the target setup. Trust me, I'm more interested in not hitting my buddy's chronograph and blowing that up than I am hitting the target. An excuse for probably not getting a perfect group of 25 yards with a rifle. We're going to shoot this thing across the chronograph. I'll give you some readings as they're fired. Not everyone may work because it's always a challenge using black powder with the smoke across the chronograph. It affects them. It's visual. So I'm going to load this, put it at half cock. Open up the loading door. Insert the cartridge. Close it. It's ready to go once I put it on full cock. Go fire it now. Chronograph on. One thousand 1,007 feet per second. Extraction. Roll it out. $90.86. Extraction. Get another one in there. I will say this, the 70 or 75 grain charge I have, I'm not sure what my memory was of 1F. You certainly know you fire something when you pull the trigger on this thing. It's a lot more than a standard musket charge would have been, which was about 60-ish grains. Come on. That one doesn't want to fit. $969, so it's just under 1,000 feet per second. I'll do one more here. $959, so very consistent. The first one must have been a fluke out of a clean barrel. We're at around 970. So that's pretty good velocity with a 520 something grain bullet, if memory serves me. I wouldn't want to get hit by one. All right, so there you go. We told you about the gun, we fired it. Any questions, put in the comment section. If you want to see differently, put that in the comment section. If you want to know more about the gun, there are other videos that explain the gun in far more detail. I just highlighted what I think are the important parts of the gun, of the ammunition, what makes it fun, where it came from, why it exists, along with the other weird British stuff that I have that's out there. But understand, you had a huge empire with a boatload of weapons. In 1865, what do you do with all these guns? The entire world is going to breech-loading guns. The Germans were way ahead of the curve. The French were ahead of it in some of their guns. Americans are doing the Allen conversion, which is using all the old Springfield type muskets and converting those into center fires, which led to the 45-70 trapdoor. Another video. You've got the British muskets, muzzle loaders, that were using the Snyder conversion. Jacob Snyder designed this. 1866 and 67, they're converting their rifles into breech loading firearms, which eventually led to 1874 when they came out with the Enfield, which was their version of our trapdoor. They're shooting a 577 450 Martini Henry rifle, which was 85 grains of black powder shoving a bullet. A little more oomph than our trapdoors, but that was their proprietarily produced rifle. We had the trapdoor rifles, which were based off the muskets with the Allen conversion. That is another video, which we can cover at some point, and I'll get into the 50s, 70s and the different guns. But you've had a transition period where British Empire's huge. The boatload of guns they have, it's a huge boatload of guns. You can't afford to effectively transition to modern, at that time, mind you, state-of-the-art breech loaders. Was it state-of-the-art? In 1867 it was. You compare this to a muzzle stuffer, it's a lot faster, and everything was state-of-the-art. At one point, a flintlock was state-of-the-art. So this was held the British Empire over for a few years so they could transition into, then again, it was still a single shot loading, breech loading rifle. And they went from there, and we went from there with our smokeless powders. This is a good stopgap measure of what to do with the hundreds of thousands of muzzle loading rifles that could be used and cost effectively modified into a usable breech loading firearm using pretty much the same bullet they had, just making it a brass center fire cartridge. All right, that's it for this episode. We'll see you in another one. Any comments? Please, if you enjoy my videos, subscribe. I'm out here in the heat. It's hot. We're in Connecticut. It's a pretty hot summer here. We're in the shade at our range in our backyard where we enjoy doing this stuff. I will try to make more videos coming up on different guns. If there's something you missed on this and you'd like some more information on it, let me know in the comments. The stuff you want to see, let me know in the comments. I have quite a few old guns, and we always try to make what I find interesting videos that may focus on parts that other people on the internet don't cover. And if not, you can always go to that little kid at the range who says, oh, I use that gun on Call of Duty and I'm an expert. That's a whole video in itself. I've had that with some of the guns where the Gen Z comes up and says, oh, that's an M1 Garand. Oh, I use it on Call of Duty. No, kid, it's a video game. It's just a video game. But thank you for sharing. Yeah, I'm like that because there was a time when I wanted to know something about stuff like this, I had to go to the gun range and find a person, usually pretty old, older than me, and have a thing called conversation. So when you're out there at the range, I'm trying to promote conversations about old guns. So it's these old guns in conversation. So when you go to the range, ask people about their old guns. I always bring old stuff to the range. People come up and ask me questions. I'm happy to explain what I know and tell them some things I don't know, and say that too. Don't want to make stuff up, and let them try them. And more people say, wow, that's really cool. Can I try it? Hell yeah, give it a shot. And try to promote and encourage the shooting sports. And not everything is a black rifle. There's a lot of other stuff out there. It's fun to shoot. So we try to cover the other stuff that's not being covered in our videos. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and we'll see what the next video is. Some other weird thing out there that we have. See ya for now. Bye. Okay, in keeping with, and I think I thought about it today, my real purpose is to promote conversations about these old guns. I gotta show you my target. Right. The good news is I did not kill my best friend's chronograph. There's a sweet spot across the sky screens where I was aiming and put 4 or 5 rounds across the chronograph. It's still intact because I once hit it with a .38 revolver and it wasn't happy. We had to fix it. So we got here our 5 shots. Now, that's not a bad group. 100-yard target, we're at 100 yards, that'd be great. Now we're 25 yards. So I should do a better target than this with a revolver. So not a marksman with that gun, not today. The main purpose was to shoot this and not kill the chronograph. But it was pretty much centered with that big sight, and I think that sight's a 100-yard sight anyway. Not too much focusing on where it's hitting, but it hit stuff. That made a group. That'd be great with a pistol at 25 yards, but this is a rifle. I'll probably trot off the bench without worrying about the chronograph, but worrying about my target. But it was still fun to shoot. It's got a hell of a bite to it when you pull the trigger on that thing, more so than a musket. And we'll see what happens with our next video. Thanks for watching. I had fun.